Cool. Glad to see so many people coming in. Welcome. A lot of familiar names on here. This is great. I recognize some of you. So before we begin, and just while we're waiting for folks to kind of get settled and come online, I just want to take a moment to thank our project sponsors who thought that a Trailhead outreach program in Mount Major would be a positive thing for the Lakes region and the hiking community in general. So big thank you to your New Hampshire Electric Co-op and also the New Hampshire Outdoor Council for their support in getting this volunteer program off the ground. So if you're joining us from one of the many trail or conservation organizations, please go ahead and just sound off in the chat. Let us know who you are. Let us know your organizational affiliation. Feel free to send a link to your website. Just type that into the chat. If you're a local Belknap County resident and you're just here to get information, feel free to let us know what town you're from. Represent your hometown, and we'll get started in just a few minutes. Yeah, let's get this started. A lot of people have a love-hate relationship with Mount Major. My name is Andy Crowley. I'm the Stewardship Project Manager for the Society for the Protection of New Hampshire Forests, a nonprofit land trust who, among many things, manages just over 260 acres on the mountain. In regards to Mount Major, I fall on the love end of the spectrum. I hate to see it mistreated. I hate to see opportunities wasted and lost, but I do love the mountain and the more than 80,000 people who visit Mount Major annually. Over the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to tell you why I think, and why many people think, why Mount Major is an asset to the Lakes region. I'm going to tell you what we can do collectively, you and I and everyone watching at home. I'm going to tell you what we can do to overcome and mitigate some of the challenges facing the mountain in our community. But first, before we get into that, just for a moment, I want to talk about the Forest Society's role in ownership and maintenance of Mount Major. A lot of people think that Mount Major is a state park, or at least it's owned by the state in some way. But like much of New Hampshire, Mount Major is a hodgepodge of state-owned land, conservation land that's open to the public, and a lot of private property. The Forest Society, we own a few hundred acres across 3 parcels. The summit of Mount Major is held by the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources, the NHDNCR. The parking area, where cars line up along the side of Route 11 on any sunny day, that's held by New Hampshire Department of Transportation, the DOT. However, the majority of what we all consider to be Mount Major is still privately owned. As you can see on the map here, the area inside of the heavy black line is all private property. The trails we love to hike are not permanently conserved, and therefore they're still at risk. We could hold a separate info session on that topic, so I'm not going to get into that tonight. But if you would like to help protect the trail network on the Lakes region's most iconic and most visited destination, please head over to forestsociety.org and we can learn more about becoming a member today. So now that I get that out of the way, let's get on with the show. So if you have questions as we go along, feel free to type them in the chat. Another member of my staff is kind of monitoring that, and we'll collect those and get to them at the end. What a view, right? For those of you who've been there, you know that Mount Major is a wonderful place to visit, has many benefits, including social, environmental, and economic opportunities. Mount Major is located in the middle of a state in which 3.2% of its economy is related to outdoor recreation. This statewide outdoor economy contributes $2.6 billion, that's billion with a B, $2.6 billion in wages to over 79,000 direct jobs, both seasonal and year-round. For those of you who live in the area or spend a good deal of time there, you understand that Mount Major is an interconnected asset in the Lakes region economy, and a big part of that economy is the draw of tourism. But it also has become associated with a few challenges, the love it, hate it relationship that people have with Mount Major. So a lot of these challenges are two-sided. It can be very challenging to manage recreational trails that see over 80,000 visitors annually, but it also makes for a great opportunity for positive outreach. And I hate to generalize and put people into a box, as no, there's always exceptions, but for the most part, the visitors at Mount Major are not the high adventure, high skill, experienced hikers seen on other parts of the state or on other mountain ranges. With the maintained loop trails being each around 3 miles round trip, Mount Major makes for a nice short day hike. These 80,000 visitors include dog walkers, public and private school groups, first-time hikers and parents and families, hiking with small children, and many people age 65 and older. It's a great starter mountain for people thinking of getting into hiking, and it's a place where people visit who are all too often unprepared. They come physically unprepared for the distance, unprepared for the steep and rough terrain of the trail, and often they're unprepared to be respectful and courteous to other visitors. Many of the visitors are unprepared to pick up dog waste and carry it out with them, which, if you've been to Mount Major, sometimes it can get really nasty. Our seasonal mountain stewards who work for the Forest Society each year during the busy summer months between June and October, they've reported many times meeting and talking with people who lack an understanding of the leave no trace principles and how their behavior affects the natural resources, the sustainability of the trail, and how it can negatively affect the enjoyment and experiences of other visitors and wildlife. But it's not just about the mountain. So Mount Monadnock, it's known as the peak that stands alone. But Mount Major, with stunning views of the Lakes region, is a watershed, and its many brooks and drainages run directly into Lake Winnipesaukee at Alton Bay. The things we do and don't do on the mountain have great effects on and outside of the trail, socially, economically, and environmentally. Mount Major can be a dangerous place for the unprepared. We want Mount Major to be an adventure, and we don't have any plans to make it like a city park, but we've got to do our part to keep people safe, both through maintained trails and especially through sharing of good trailhead information to prevent mishaps. Now, it's not all doom and gloom, and I didn't come here tonight to tell you that Mount Major stinks and you shouldn't go up there. You can read the comment section on Facebook if you want to hear complaints. 80,000 visitors a year makes for a great opportunity to reach a wide range of people, many who are just starting out in outdoor recreation. There is an immense opportunity, to establish positive behaviors, prevent mishaps and mistakes, and an opportunity to build long-lasting positive relationships with the many people visiting the Lakes region and to maintain relationships and celebrate the people who call this area home. For those of you who were around, in 2019, Mount Major was selected by the Leave No Trace Center for Outdoor Ethics as a national hotspot of negative environmental impact caused by visitor use. This dubious honor and national highlight was a blessing, though, because Leave No Trace sent 2 traveling trainers to come to Mount Major and work with our staff, local educators, and other community partners to strategize on how to get the message of responsible recreation out to people visiting the mountain. Of the recommendations made by Leave No Trace, some of the low-hanging fruit included better signage, providing dog waste bags and encouraging proper disposal, and better trail and navigational signage, so maps and trail signs. The reason you're here tonight is to learn about how the Forest Society aims to tackle these issues while also engaging and empowering members of the local community to get involved. This photo is from a few years ago. The Volunteer Trailhead Outreach Program, or Vtop, what we're calling it. It's an idea that's been in development for quite a while. In the spring of 22, we feel that our organization has the time and the capacity to introduce this new program, and it's my hope that you'll find the time to get involved and to help us deliver trail info, best practices, and helpful suggestions to the visitors at Mount Major before they leave the relative safety of their cars at the parking lot. And I've said this before, I'll say it again, we cannot do this without you. And I say it because studies have shown, as you can see in this wonderful graph that shows sustainable change, organizational top-down change has a high impact initially, but it wanes over time. We need community involvement. We need your involvement because though the impact may feel small initially, over time it's been shown that grassroots, community-led programs have greater potential to cultivate lasting and meaningful positive change over a wider audience through generations. Without the support of locals and people like you who care, the effects of any program that we put together just won't be sustainable in the long run. And then here's a case study. So a prime example of a small volunteer-led program with feedback and support from a large organization that's making an enormous impact and lasting impact over the long run. So if any of you are hikers who visit the White Mountains in New Hampshire, you may be familiar with the Trailhead Stewards program, which is what we're using as a model for Vtop. The Trailhead Stewards program was started in 2014 with just 10 volunteers, really small. But now it has grown to over 158 volunteers who contribute nearly 2,500 hours of volunteer service each year. In this year alone, Trailhead Stewards in the White Mountains made contact with over 23,000 hikers, 3,000 of which changed their itinerary or hiking plans based on information provided by the volunteers. An example is on a seemingly sunny September day this year, of the 171 hikers contacted, 137 of them changed their plans after being informed of high winds in excess of 25 miles per hour on the Franconia Ridge. So out of 171 people, 137 of them took the advice of volunteers and changed their plans for safe ideas. It's quite a big impact. And it's this kind of basic information, facts, trail conditions, weather, that can be really extremely helpful to visitors at Mount Major too. I know you can find all that information on the internet, but most people don't take the time to do that because it's just Mount Major. Or worse yet, folks get their information from a crowdsourced hiking app like AllTrails, which is notorious for providing false and misleading information. People talking to other people has been the most trusted form of communication since the dawn of civilization. It's a valuable experience, and it's one that we want to provide at Mount Major. You may have already noticed this if you're around the area. This pavilion here was built last summer by Forest Society staff and volunteers in anticipation of new trailhead maps and signage as a place to welcome visitors. So this is where we plan to stage the volunteers who will engage with folks, ask them about their hiking plans, and provide helpful information. Next spring, the new property map and information kiosk will be installed at this location, which is in the center of the parking lot where dozens of hikers walk by each day. So you might be asking, what does it take to become a Vtop member? For this pilot year, we're asking volunteers to take part in a few online training modules at home. They'll be available 24 hours a day, so the initial training can be done at your convenience, along with a day that we'll schedule in April to visit the mountain and trailhead as a team to become more familiar with the location and with our staff. So modeled after similar outreach programs, we're asking volunteers to work in 2 to 4 hour shifts, overlapping so that no one has to work alone for their entire shift. Volunteers will have access to an easy-to-use online scheduling and sign-up form that allows you to pick from available time slots that fit into your schedule. We're also asking that volunteers commit to a minimum of just 10 shifts from April through October, and that they work together with other volunteers to improve their technique and make meaningful connections with as many visitors as possible. That's the whole idea of visitor outreach. There are always there are always visitors to Mount Major, but for next year, this year now, for 2022, we're planning to run Vtop on days where visitation is the highest. Weekends, holidays, days when we know school groups will be visiting for field trips. If we can get enough people signed up to volunteer, it's our goal to launch the first day of Vtop on April 22nd, Earth Day. So along with outreach training and a general sense of satisfaction from a job well done, the Vtop volunteers will receive a t-shirt, a Forest Society hat, and a name badge, kind of like the one I'm wearing here. Very official. The Forest Society takes great pride in its volunteers. You'll be invited to annual volunteer appreciation events. You'll have access to our staff of professional conservationists, and you'll make connections with other volunteers and people within your community. I want to encourage anyone within a reasonable distance of Mount Major to join this program, regardless of your hiking experience, regardless of your knowledge of the area or your physical abilities. We're going to train you on the local info stuff. And since this is a trailhead only volunteer opportunity, being out on the trail and hiking is not part of the program. The Forest Society is also happy to provide documentation to any students who are seeking volunteer hours to put toward graduation requirements. What we need is a diverse group of volunteers because Mount Major has a diverse group of visitors. So looking at the clock, we're coming toward the end of my end of the talk. And while we're here, I just want to recap and hit 3 important takeaway messages. I know I've been talking a lot, so we'll just recap this. If you remember anything from tonight, it should be these 3 things. The trails of Mount Major are mostly on private property and are not currently protected or conserved. The Forest Society maintains the trailhead on Route 11, but we only control a few hundred acres of the property. Even before the pandemic, people have been flocking to the outdoors in increasing numbers for the last 20 years. With cell phones, internet connectivity, and social media networks, people see Mount Major as a quick and easy way to get outside. Guests are coming to the party, but they don't know whether to wear a tuxedo or a bathing suit. It's a big challenge to inform visitors of their role and responsibilities in keeping a place like Mount Major sustainable. We aim to put people at the door armed with helpful information and dog waste bags. And the most important takeaway message of tonight, you can help. You can help by being a better visitor yourself. You can help by donating and getting involved in conservation land campaigns with the Forest Society or other local land trusts. You can help by joining the Vtop program and sharing these messages with the many visitors of Mount Major. Through local community outreach with positive, consistent messaging, the Forest Society aims to reduce some of the conflict happening on the trails, reduce the amount of dog waste on the trails, and generally provide a better, safer, and more empowering outdoor experience for visitors of Mount Major. I don't expect everyone watching right now to jump out of their seats immediately and sign up. Think about what you're already committed to. Think about whether you're able to complete the at-home training in the minimum 10 shifts per season. Think about whether you believe you're committed to making a positive change and improving the hiking community in the Belknap Range. I think it's up to each of us to create the world that we want to live in, the world that we want to be proud of, and the world that we want to pass down to our children. It looks like there are quite a few questions in the chat, so at this time I'll take a few minutes to answer some of those. If there's anything I did not touch on, or if I was vague about anything, please feel free to add it to the chat, and or if you raise your hand and we'll call on you. You can ask yourself in your own words.
Andy, we have one question in the chat. There's been not too many questions in the chat, but a lot of people were saying who they are, which is great. Will volunteers have access to parking near the trailhead?
As far as parking for volunteers, right now there is one space that we reserve for staff only at Mount Major parking lot, and most of the visitors are pretty good about leaving that open. I think we'll see how things go this year, And if it's necessary, we could do that, make it 2 spaces for our Vtop volunteers. Something to consider. It's a great question.
One more, Andy. What does the virtual training look like? They're wondering if it's videos and forms.
Yeah, great question. So it hasn't been totally developed yet. I would love to show you, an example of it. But we've done these for some of our other volunteer programs where it's a short 10 to 20 minute video about a certain topic, and that might be visitor engagement, bias awareness training, how to provide information, leave no trace topics, things of that nature, and then some more forest society, local, regional information type topics. We want volunteers to understand who we are and understand why you're volunteering with forest society specifically, but also we want you to be armed with information about the local area. One of the goals of the volunteer Trailhead outreach program is to let folks know, hey, the trail has 1,000 people on it right now. The cars are lined up and down Route 11. Here are a few other options you can go hike at these other areas in the region, and that's the kind of information to be trained on.
I think that's it. So we can open it up to questions. If people have questions, they can just kind of raise their hand. And if you can't, if you find you can't unmute yourself, I will unmute you. So.
Jay says, count me in. Loving the enthusiasm.
Hey, Andy, this is Lisa Rappis.
Good evening, Lee. Good to hear from you.
Hey, if we decide we want to become Vtop members, what would the next steps forward look like? Thanks.
That's great. Yeah, what I'll do is I'll set it up right now. I have a form. For this. So you can fill out this quick form. It lets me know your name and contact info and a little bit of background, and we'll put you in a pool of interested volunteers. From that pool, we'll call you up and find out, if it's going to work out. But let me post that in the chat right now. Let me just exit out of my presentation. It's one of those things. Someone said, "Great, well prepared speech," but I don't have my link set up. All right, I'm adding this to the chat right now. I've got probably all of your email addresses too, and I can send this out if you don't get it tonight. But there is a Google Doc in the chat right now. If you click that, it should bring you to a really simple form just to collect some basic info. And as Lee asked, we'll follow up with you from there.
So Andy, Ashley asked, I heard the 2 to 4 hour shifts. Is there a required number of shifts to sign up for through the season? And she said she may have missed it. I think that is 10, correct?
Yeah, this is a pilot year. So this is a whole new program. We're not really sure what the sweet spot will be. We're throwing 10 out there as a good faith. If you can do 10, I think that's like 1 or 2 shifts per month. So yeah, at this time we're asking if you could do 10 shifts.
And Michael's asking, will all 10 expected to be on weekends?
No. What we'll do is we'll put up a calendar of availability, and you can go on the website and just click on whatever available is that meets your own personal availability. So if you don't want to do every single weekend, I totally get that, because I don't want to do that either. There will be some middays, there will be some holidays, there will be some weekends will probably always be available. And there's no reason why we couldn't have 3 volunteers on the same shift on a busy Saturday. I don't have a problem with that. I think the more the merrier, especially in the beginning, so we all can work together and kind of polish your routine. And we'll learn from this experience. So when we run it again in 2023, we'll know more of what to expect. I'm trying not to be very vague here, but like I said, this is a whole new program. We're copying somewhat of what's happening in the White Mountains, but it's a totally different animal, totally different visitor group, and the numbers. Sometimes you can go to Mount Major on a Wednesday and there's no one in the parking lot, and other days it's like it's going out of style. Everyone in the whole Northeast region is there. we'll have to fine tune that. But basically, to answer your question, we'll have an availability calendar and you can pick whatever meets your schedule.
Yeah, I mean, anecdotally, summer afternoons are often very busy. I'm sure Derek, who is been our trail steward there for many summers, would agree with that. Is like afternoons in the summer are very busy, and then weekends and holidays.
Great. So right now, we're just trying to get the word out to people in the area, in the Mount Major, Lakes region, Alton, Belknap range, everyone to kind of let them know this is what we're doing. We're going to try this thing out. We want you to be involved. If you have feedback, definitely send it to me. We'll take that into consideration in helping to form this new program over the next month or so. Yes, Linda, it should be in the chat. Let me know if it's not there. You might have to scroll up. There's been a few questions. So our next steps would be just to develop the training. We're really working behind the scenes kind of to craft our messaging, find out what the most important messages are. We're expecting that these volunteers at the Trailhead, they might get 30 seconds to talk to some people. Others might come and chat them up for 30 minutes. It's going to be all over the place. So we want to make sure that the volunteers are prepared with a hierarchy of what's the most important information I can get out, as well as some good talking points. So they're not just, we're not only talking about the weather. The weather is important, but there's more to it than that, right?
And nobody's seeing that. I don't see the link either, Andy. So I don't know if you.
I might have only sent it to Lee. Let me do that again.
I think that's the case.
From me to everyone. There we go.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
All right, much appreciated. If you have any more questions, I'll email you and you can write back. But I'm Andy Crowley with the Society for the Protection of New Hampshire Forests. It's acrowley@forestsociety.org. I'll type that in the chat as well before we all sign off. Looks good. Yeah, thank you for your time. We're really excited about this new program. It's been a long time coming.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.